We are consolidating our knowledge about graphs. Now, Nikita and, oh my gosh, Imanya, am I remembering your name correctly? Let me actually go in the chat and look. Imanya, yes. Imanya. You guys are joining us on the tail end of our series. So if you do have a question, you are more than welcome to ask me. But we do have about 5 other lessons we've done in this series. So you guys should also go and watch the rest of that series to make sure that you're up to date and you've covered everything. And then as for what we have on the board, they've asked us to describe each of the relationships using a formula. Now, remember what we said? We said that a relationship is basically showing how one variable affects another variable. And we can represent that relationship in multiple ways. We can use, I think there's about 5 things. I want you guys to put in the chat what are the different ways we have learned so far that we can use to represent a relationship. Or you can raise your hand if you want to tell me there, but it's not too long of an answer, so you can put it in the chat. I want us to list all of the ways we've learned to represent relationships. Itandile, I think that's you, yes?
I'm the Cartesian plane.
Not the Cartesian plane. What do we draw on the Cartesian plane?
We draw a graph.
We draw a graph on the Cartesian plane, so we can represent a relationship using a graph. That's correct,
Number
Itandile.
pattern.
Not a number pattern. We've said a table, or Bree has said a table. Not a number pattern. Remember, Itandile, a number pattern is really just when the numbers are just written next to each other. That's not really a way to be used to represent these relationships.
This one.
Lakeisha, I'm not sure. Am I echoing for anybody else?
No, ma'am, you're fine on my side.
Lakeisha, maybe try turning off one of your, if you have multiple devices open, maybe try turning off one. So we have a graph, we have a table. Anything else? Very, very in your faces. What are we missing?
A formula.
A formula. And we can use words. A formula is an equation. That's correct. There we go. And we actually have one more. Anybody can think of it for 2 marks? I'll give you a hint. It starts with a F. Here comes another hint. Here's another hint.
A flow diagram.
There we go. A flow diagram. Guys, what's happened to you guys? Normally you guys are like shooting answers at me. I'm surprised you guys don't remember this. But these are the ways we've learned so far that we can use to represent a relationship. We can use a graph, we can use a table, we can use a formula or an equation, we can use words, and we can use a flow diagram. Those are all of the days. Okay, Lakeisha, no stress. Yeah, Uma, actually, Uma, you have not given me an answer. I'm very, very shocked. Looking at A, it says to calculate the output number. Guys, when we have our formula, we want X and Y's, okay? Is my output an X or is it a Y? What do you guys think? Output
It's a
is a Y. Beautiful. Output is represented with a Y. So to calculate my output number, 7 is subtracted from the input number. What is my input number? Is it X or Y? Yes.
It's an X, ma'am.
It's an X. Beautiful. Nikita, it is a not, sorry. It is graphs. We are doing graphs right now, but we are on the last lesson of graphs. So we're sort of doing revision of everything we've done so far. If you do have questions, please do ask. Even though you obviously wouldn't have been in the previous lessons, it's still 100% doable for you to learn it all in this lesson. Brie, you're so close. If we say 7 is subtracted from, what does that mean?
5 minus 7.
Not 5. So we're not subtracting 7 from 5. Remember,
So
7,
x minus 7.
7 is subtracted from my input. And then the entire answer is
Is gonna
multiplied by
multiply
5.
by 5. So it's gonna be 5x minus 7.
So this, and it's not, remember Itandile, we're not just multiplying x by 7. I'm saying x minus 7, so I'm subtracting 7 from x, and then I take that whole answer that I get and I multiply it by 5. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's not just 5x. What actually happens is we have to do this distribution. And what does it become?
5x 5x with negative 35.
Beautiful. So that is now my formula. I want you guys to maybe use some reactions. How are we feeling about this? Is this a little bit confusing? I'm sure it is. But is this making some sort of sense? Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs ups. Please don't be afraid to give me a thumbs down and say, ma'am. There we go. Ma'am, I'm very lost. Okay, so what I want us to do is we're focusing very much on the English over here. This is almost like a word problem where they've given you a lot of English and you have to figure out how to turn this into something mathematical. And so let's start all over again. Let us start all over again. Just to do a little bit of a recap, I want us to go back, possibly here. I want us to go back to this lesson we did. And remember what we said. We said that our input in a relationship, our input is an independent variable, and we also call the input x or n. Okay, and our output is a dependent variable, and we call our output y, or we call it tn. So remember this theory. That is what we are taking into here. What we are taking is we are saying, okay, they said to calculate the output number. So immediately I know my output number is y. My output is going to be y. So they're saying to calculate y, what we have to do is we have to take 7 and subtract it from my input. Unati, I want you to maybe unmute yourself and talk to me. Do you see that my input, we're going to call it x? Anybody? Enter, you can also unmute yourself. Anybody who doesn't get it. I want to speak to somebody who's a little bit confused so I can take you with me and I can make sure that you're not getting left behind. So somebody give me some sort of idea. Are we understanding so far what I've said? So they're saying to calculate my output, which is y, I have to go and I have to take my input number and 7 must be subtracted from my input number. Okay? So 7 is subtracted from the input number. That's what I have so far. But then the answer to this, so in other words, this whole answer here must be multiplied by 5. Okay, and this is basically my equation. Now you could have left it here, but because I can see I could distribute, what we did is we went and we said, well, y is going to be equal to 5 times x is 5x, and 5 times negative 7 is going to give me negative 35. Kind of, because ma'am, the subtraction of 7 from something, yes. So 7 must be subtracted from something. So 7 must be subtracted from my input. So if we put that into a mathematical sum, that's going to be x minus 7. And this is how we land up at this equation here. I hope that that makes more sense, you guys. And if you're still confused, let's maybe try the second one and see if that's going to make a little bit more sense. So they've said here to calculate the output number, what can I represent? What variable can I use to represent my output number, you guys? It's going to be y. And then to calculate my output number, 7 is subtracted from the input number. So we're doing the same thing. I take the input number, which is x, and 7 is subtracted from that. Okay? And so beautiful, Itandile, you've told me what my input number is. Okay. So to calculate my output so far, we have to subtract 7 from my input number. And I see Liacho with an answer in the chat. We'll see if you're correct in a minute. So 7 is subtracted from my input number. And then the answer is multiplied by 5. So again, we're taking this answer and multiplying it by 5. And then to this whole answer, we are adding 3. And so Liacho is spot on. To calculate my output, what it said we have to do is we have to go and we have to take my input number, and then 7 must be subtracted from that. Once we've subtracted 7 from that, I have to take the answer and multiply it by 5. So I'm taking my answer and I'm multiplying it by 5. And then to this whole thing, I am going to add 3. Okay. I hope this is making sense to you guys. So you can still create an equation even when you have a lot of words. Itandile, yes.
Ma'am, but why did you distribute on the first one, but then this side you didn't distribute?
So remember I said we could have left it at this. So in this one, I still can distribute and I can still say this is still going to be 5x minus 35 plus 3. And then now we can simplify. Negative 35 plus 3 gives me what, Itandile?
Negative 32, ma'am.
Equals to minus 32. There you go. So we could have had it as this top equation over here, or you could have it as the bottom one. They are the same thing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Pleasure. Let me see some reactions now. I hope now we're all on board. This is making a little bit more sense. Cool, cool, cool. Happy to see that, Demi. Okay. So everything has moved. This is gonna be a bit of an issue. Let me try and fix this. Okay. I truly don't know how I'm gonna do this. Let's try this. Okay. Okay. I'm still Umar, stop with your reactions. I was like, who's still reacting? A, B, C, and then this must be D. It's capital, but we're leaving it at that. I fixed it. So remember, guys, we have this one relationship, and maybe let me scroll up. It says, let's revisit a pattern we looked at in the first lesson of the series. So, oh, goodness gracious. I don't know what's happening to my notes today. So let's revisit a pattern we looked at in the first lesson. So we have this pattern over here. It's 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. We are now going to see how we can take this one relationship and represent it using everything we've learned about. We're going to represent it using words, using an equation, using a table, using a flow diagram, and then using a graph. So first things first, how do we represent a pattern using words? Can somebody tell me what the answer to that would be? How do I represent it using words? Itanila, you've answered already, so I'm going to take Bree's hand. Yes, Bree.
So for the answer is going to be you add 2 start to each number starting from 3.
Okay, so we're going to say starting with 3, we add 2 to get to the next term. You with me there?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. So that was beautifully done. Guys, all that we're doing when we are representing a pattern using words, all we're doing is we're saying, how do we get from one term to the next? And what I see here is they've added 2. From 5 to 7, they've added 2. From 7 to 9, they've added 2. From 9 to 11, they've added 2. So when we are representing this pattern using words, all we have to do is tell them, how do we get from one term to the next? And all we had to say was add 2 to get to the next term. You didn't even have to say starting with 3, but it's always good to say what number we're starting from. We're all happy with this, representing a pattern using words. I'm going to check in with you guys after each step. Uma is with me, Itandile as well. I'd like to see some more names. There we go. Okay. So now we're trying to find an equation. Now, if you guys remember the steps to get an equation, the first thing I have to remember is, in order to find my equation is going to be always in the format of this. My output is going to be equals to my constant difference times my input. So what is my constant difference here? My constant difference is 2. Remember, this over here is your constant difference. It's what you have to add to get to the next term. Okay. So you're going to take your input and you're going to multiply it with your constant difference. And now I have to add something. How do I know what I have to add? Well, let's go and let's substitute into this formula and see what it is that I have to add. I'm going to take term number 3 over here. Okay, this is term number 3. So that means that 3 is my input and 7 is my output. Okay, so if I had to go and substitute 3 as my input, 2 times 3 gives us what? What are we getting when we say 2 times 3? There we go. We're getting 6. There we go. Thank you, Demi and Liaho and Itandile. Okay. So we're getting 3, and Brie, I see both of your equations. We're gonna get to it in a minute. So I'm getting 6, but when my input is 3, you guys, when my input is 3 over here, what do I want my output to be? What do I want my output to be? Can somebody tell me? When my input is 3, what should my output be? Thank you, Uma. Uma, maybe you answer this one for us. There we go. Itandile has answered. When my input is 3, I want my output to be 7. So how do I get from what I have, which is 6, to 7? How do I do that? There we go. We have to plus 1. Demi, I'm super glad to see that you're with me on this. Because I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, but I do remember that you used to find this super difficult. There we go. So that's going to be plus 1. Thank you, Uma. You've made up for all the answers you did not answer. Cool. There we go, Demi. So I'm super proud that you're with me and you're answering, because it's not so bad. So I'm going to repeat what we just did. Step 1, and let me maybe write it on the side. No, I'll actually write it under here. Step 1 to find an equation is you multiply your input with your difference. Remember, what is your difference? It's just what you're adding or subtracting to get to the next term. Then what you're going to do is you're going to see what you get when you do that. So see what, oh my goodness, I'm missing a word. Then you are going to see what you get, and when we did that, we got 6. And you're going to then compare it to what you want to get. Compare it to what you want to get. Cool. So now I saw I got 6, but I wanted to get 7. And so the third thing that you're going to do is then you're going to add or subtract something. So I'm just using a block. Add or subtract something to get to what you want. To get to what you, and I'm just going to write it under here, to get to what you want. So that is what we did. I'm going to repeat. First things first, multiply our input. My input is x. I'm going to multiply it with my difference. And my difference here was 2. Now, when I actually do that, let me pick something from my table. And I'm picking 3 and 7. 3 is my input, and 7 should be my output. Okay? So when I take 2 and I multiply it by 3, I'm only getting 6. But I'm going to now compare it to what I want to get. I want to get 7. And so now I need to add or subtract something to get to what I want. So from 6 to get to 7, I need to add 1. And so we have 2x plus 1, and that is going to give me my output. Are we all with me on this, how we got the equation?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool, thank you. Enhle, yes. Was that a mistake? Because I see your hand is down now. There we go. Cool. Nikita and Imanye, I hope that you guys are still with me. Maybe put a message in the chat and let me know that I've not completely left you guys behind. Or just give me a reaction. Is that a yes, ma'am, that you're still with me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Cool. Thank you. Good, I'm glad to see you guys are following along. Then, we're taking the same relationship, we're putting it in a table. Remember what we said? Usually what happens is our input goes on the top, and our input we label as X, and our output goes at the bottom, and our output we label as Y. Now, all that we're going to do, our input is just literally our term numbers. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My output is going to be 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. That was super duper easy. But what I am going to show you guys is I want to fill in my table in a way that's going to give me good coordinates to fill in my graph. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pick my coordinates, and I'm going to pick my coordinates as -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So now I know what my output is for term 1 and term 2, and that's going to be 3, and that's going to be 5. I don't know what my output is for these 3 inputs, but I can calculate it using my formula. So if we look at it down here, and I'm gonna just erase this. Now is your time to take screenshots if you want what I've written in the corner here, because I'm about to delete it. I'm giving you guys like 3 more seconds. Okay, it's going. There we go. Okay, so let's go and let's do some calculations. I have y is equals to 2, and let's make my x now -2, and then it must be +1. Okay, I'm now calculating 2 times -2 is -4 plus 1. Give me the answer, you guys. What is -4 plus 1? Sorry, you are so... No, it is -4. Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. Correct. Thank you, guys. Now, what I want you guys to sort of understand, if you're confused about why I've changed my inputs over here, remember, if you weren't here for the previous lessons, you might be a little bit confused. But remember, when I draw a graph, I usually draw my graph from my table. And when I'm drawing on a graph, I usually want to have x values that are negative and positive, just so that I can have my dots nicely across my Cartesian plane so that I can draw it. So you could have kept your inputs as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but just to show you guys how to fill in a table even when you get to pick your own inputs, I'm doing this as well. If you did it the first way, that would have been fine as well. It makes no difference. This is just sort of, it tends to become easier because you have dots spread across your Cartesian plane instead of just in one little space. Okay. Moving on, let's now change this from negative 2 to negative 1. What are we getting there? 2 times negative 1 is going to give me negative 2 plus 1. Negative 2 plus 1 is, there we go, negative 1. Thank you, Bree. And let's change this now to 0. What are we getting when it's 0? 2 times 0 is 0 plus 1. There we go. Thank you, Tandile and Bree. Beautiful. Okay. My table is now full. What I also want you guys to see is, remember, to go forward in our number line, all we were doing was plussing 2. Not in our number line, excuse me, in our pattern. So to go backwards, I could have just minused 2. Okay, that's another way. But it was only going to work when I minus 2 if my inputs were also continuing in ones. Okay, so that's that. Give me some reactions. Let us know, are we happy with how I filled in this table? Great. Awesome. Demi, love to hear it. You're making me the happiest person today. Cool. Now we have a flow diagram. Remember, in our flow diagram, which do we have our inputs on the left-hand side, or do we have our outputs on the left-hand side? Which one do you guys think?
Inputs on the left-hand side, ma'am. I think, ma'am.
Beautiful. Thank you for answering. I'm so happy that you're being active, Imani. Itandile, beautiful. X. X, our inputs is on our left-hand side. On the right-hand side, it means we're going to have our outputs. So we can pick any inputs we wanted, but just for ease of calculations, I'm just going to pick the same inputs I picked in my table. So I'm going to go, and I don't know when I changed that to a positive, that was a negative. So I'm going to go negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. Now I have to figure out what the rule is in the middle. Now I can't just copy my equation. I have to say, what do I have to do to my input to get my output? I want to see, can you guys tell me, what is my rule in the middle going to be? Uma, I know we're like on track to get there, but we're a little bit behind because of my technical issues. It is 2x plus 1, but remember, Bree, my flow diagram, the rule in the middle doesn't have any variables in it. So you have to tell me, what do I have to do first? 100%. The first thing I have to do is multiply by 2, and then I have to plus 1. So remember, what I'm saying is I have to take x. My flow diagram is telling me, take x, multiply it by 2, and then add 1, which is basically what I've done in my equation. I've taken x, I multiplied it by 2, and then I add 1. The order here is super important. W's for Uma, 100%. I'm glad to see you're back on your answering streak. So that's what we have to do. We have to multiply by 2 and add 1. That's the hardest part really about a flow diagram. So I'm going to check in with you guys now. Are we all understanding how I got the rule in the middle of my flow diagram? Itanila, a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
The only part that's confusing me, why do you have to multiply 2? Because in the table and in the equation, you said it's 2, it's positive 2x.
Mm-hmm.
So where does the times 2 plus 1 come from? But then, ma'am, aren't we also allowed to have variables in the flow diagram?
Generally, no. Generally, you don't have variables inside your flow diagram. There are some cases when you can, but if they ask you not to, you should be able to know how to do that. And Itandile, what does 2x mean? What's the operation there?
It's 2 times x.
It's 2 times x. So what we're saying is we are multiplying our input with 2. Do you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's the first thing we're doing. If you want to think of it in another way, the other thing that you can think of is think of those flow diagrams that have 2 boxes, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm gonna, but these things don't like listening to me. Um, okay. Think of these flow diagrams, okay, with 2 boxes. The
Yes,
first
ma'am.
thing we have to do is we have to take our input and multiply it by 2 first. That's what we did in our equation. Do you see that? We've
Yes,
multiplied it by 2.
yes, ma'am.
And then we add 1. Do you see how that sort of flows?
Yes, ma'am.
It's wrong if we say take my input and then add 1 and then multiply by 2. Do you see? This gives me something different to what I had up here. So the order, that's why I said the order is important. You can't say add 1 first and then multiply by 2 because that's not what we did in our equation. In our
Yes, ma'am.
equation, the first thing that happened was we multiplied our x with 2 and then we added 1. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. So now that I've got my rule, I don't really have to worry too much about doing the calculations. I've already got all of my outputs that I need in my flow diagram. Cool. So that's that on my flow diagram. We are almost there on the brain break. We are now lastly going to look at this graph. Now remember my graph is drawn on the Cartesian plane. What do we know about the Cartesian plane? I know that we have my axis, which is y to the sky. So the axis that's pointing up is my y-axis. I also know that the other axis is then going to be my x-axis. I also know that 0 is the point that's in the middle. I also know that I can number my axes 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now I know on the left hand side there's going to be negative numbers, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and -6. And I know I can do the same for the y-axis. So it is going to be, and this is going to be a little bit difficult because it's not exactly on the block. So I'm going to try and fix that. There we go. That's better. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Lakeisha, if you're in class, am I still echoing for you? And then on this side, we have -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, and we'll leave it at that. Are we all happy with how I've labeled and numbered my Cartesian plane? Let me know that we're all still following. Okay. Thumbs ups. Guys, always ask. Yes, I see a question. I think it was a mistake. Oh my. Okay, lots of thumbs up. Hi, Shady. I didn't see you in the beginning of the lesson. Okay, cool. The next thing that I need, tell me guys, what's the next step I'm gonna take to be able to draw this graph on my Cartesian plane? Glad to hear it, Lakeisha. Yes, Itandile.
Ma'am, we make our coordinates
Beautiful. Can you give me the first two coordinates?
12 to -2
Mm-hmm.
and -3,
Mm-hmm. And the next one?
-1 and -1.
Beautiful. Does somebody else want to give me the last two? Because I'll do the middle one. Remember what we're doing now is we are creating coordinates. Every point in this Cartesian plane has coordinates. What we do is we take our x values and we take our y values and we join them to form a coordinate pair. So over here, my 0, and remember always write x first and then your y values. And then I saw hands. Let me take them. Who's up first? Okay, Uma, you are up.
Um, Ma'am, the next one is 1 and 3, and then the next one is 2 and 5.
2 and 5.
I'm
Beautiful.
redeeming myself, ma'am.
You?
I'm redeeming myself.
I see that. I'm glad that you are. So now that we have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to now draw these points on my Cartesian plane. So remember, -2, we start always first with our x-axis. So for -2, I'm here, right? But I now have to go down to -3 on my y-axis. And that brings me here. So this is that point, -2 and -3. If we were to do -1 and -1, remember we always start on our x-axis, but then I also have to get to -1 on my y-axis. And that's going to leave me here. 0 and 1, 0 on my x-axis is right here. And then to get to 1 on my y-axis, I actually have to go up now. And that's going to leave me here. 1 and 3, 1 on my +1 on my x-axis, and now I need to go up to +3. It leaves me here. And then lastly, 2 and 5. So we have 2 over here, and I'm going to go up to a +5. You see all of my dots. We now go, we take a ruler. I don't have a ruler, but we take a ruler and we go and we draw a line through those points. So obviously mine is not going to be perfect because I don't have a ruler to join it all up nicely. But that's the gist of it. And if they say label your graph, all you're going to do is you're going to write the equation of that graph next to it. You're going to say y is equals to 2x plus 1. Yes, Itandile. Itandile?
No, ma'am, there's a mistake. Sorry.
Okay, no stress. So this is basically a summary of everything we've done over the last, I think it was 2 weeks. So if you guys need a screenshot, now's the time to do so. We're moving on to our brain break, which I'm not gonna spend too much time on. Apologies. So for our new friends, we have a brain break and we play One Must Stay. And so we really just debate about from these four, which one would you keep? You'd have to get rid of the rest of the things forever and ever. And which one would you keep? So I'm gonna take one hand per screen. So I have 4 hands up right now. These are the 4 hands I'm taking. Uma, yes, what are you keeping? Soap, toothpaste, roll-on, or lotion?
Uh, Roland has to stay. Right? Because for toothpaste, like, they can use coal, like charcoal, like how they should do it in the olden days. Lotion, you don't need that at all. Soap, wash yourself with, you can wash yourself with water and put, like, use shampoo as soap or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's smart, actually.
yeah.
Okay, I actually think I might agree with you, right?
Because
Because
you
roll-on
know
really
what?
keeps you from smelling.
Imagine you go out in a hot day, you start sweating, and then people walk around you. They say you stink and stuff.
Okay, I actually think I agree because like toothpaste, We could use, like, people used to use like salt and stuff, I think, to brush their teeth because it's like abrasive. Lotion, like you can use oils, like coconut oil is gonna be your best friend. Soap, like water, water can do it. As long as you have roll on, like you're not gonna smell, so you're good. I agree with you, Umar. I'd also keep roll on. Moving on. This one, yeah, I'll never forget this one when you told me I was 40 years old when we did this one. Um,
Ma'am, I don't think I told you that, but yeah.
okay, Itandile, which one would you keep? You're gonna get rid of three of them, but you keep one.
Ma'am, I would get rid of like the comics.
Same.
Then I would let the novels stay.
I think so, right? Because like movies and series, like what are you gonna do when there's no electricity? You're gonna stay into space, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing is, like series are so good, but novels are like novels, They're never gonna be
But then, ma'am, like there's a book called Heartstopper that's being changed into a series, and it's already a season 2. The book was
right.
much more better.
I agree. A lot of the books are always better than the movies and series. So yeah, Itanile and I are keeping novels in. Sorry, not sorry, guys. Thank you for answering, Itandile.
Yes,
Moving
ma'am.
on, I'm gonna take the last two hands on this one. We have Liaho and Unati. Liaho, actually, Unati, you go first. Ladies first. We have go karting, bowling, the cinema, or paintball.
Ma'am, I think go-karting should stay.
Really,
Yes, because like if you think about it, bowling is boring. The
it
cinema is
is.
kind of boring.
It
Paintballing is
is.
painful. So go-karting is way better.
I hear you, but you see, my thing is like go karting is kind of expensive. So, like, yes, I get it. Bowling and the cinema is kind of boring, but like, you can do them at least like once a month, Like, who's going go karting once a month? That's kind
Mhm.
of
There's
crazy.
always a way. There's always a way, man.
Okay, Unati, respect go karting it is. Liaho, do you agree or disagree?
Yes, ma'am, go karting because I'm the best go kart in this class. I think so, maybe, but yeah. But yeah, ma'am, I'm
Okay.
definitely gonna keep go karting, ma'am, because it's more fun. Bowling is boring. What like the cinema is quite boring. But paintballing is also good, but like nah, but go karting is better. That's why.
I expected you to say paintball, Liaho.
Yeah, ma'am, I think I've done paintballing like 3 times. Yo, but yo, sometimes it hurts you. I but I'm good at it though. Yo.
I've never actually gone paintballing, but I've seen enough of my friends come back with bruises for me to know
Yeah, same, ma'am. Ma'am,
it's
ma'am,
not.
one time I got shot in the neck, ma'am, straight there.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Liaho.
ma'am. It sucks, ma'am.
Demi likes bowling. Yo, people are defending bowling in the comments. That's crazy. Okay, anyways, guys, we have like 3 minutes to get back into maths. Let's see if we can finish one more. I don't know what the heck happened to my notes today, but I'm just gonna move this down. We're gonna finish up with this one. Let's use the table to draw the graph for, and again, to draw the graph to represent, to represent the relationship. Again, we can pick our inputs. Someone raise their hand and tell me what inputs you guys want to pick. Input is X and output is Y. Anybody want to tell me yes, Itandile?
Um,
Mhm.
so can it like be negative numbers?
Yeah, for
At
sure.
okay. Can you please say -6,
Mm-hmm.
-5,
Mm-hmm.
0,
Mm-hmm.
2, and 1, 2
2 and
and
1.
3.
Okay. 2 and 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Now I'm gonna go and let's calculate them. So my equation is that y is equals to negative 2x plus 3. So let's go and let us substitute. When my x is going to be -6, what are we getting as the answer to this, you guys?
Positive 2.
How did you get positive 2?
Then because when you times a negative and a negative, it's equal to a positive.
Mm-hmm. So it gives me a positive, and then 2 times 6 is what?
12, ma'am.
12. And we still have plus 3. Finish up for me, Itandile.
15, ma'am.
15. Okay. So I've now got my first output here with my input as oh, I've been choking the whole day. Oh my god. And so we now oh goodness. Okay. We now have our first input. What do we get when we sub in -5? It's a negative times a negative. Let's check
16,
Brie,
ma'am.
which gives us a positive 10 plus 3. Beautiful Brie. It gives us 13. Let's now try 0. I'm so sorry, guys. My voice is literally dying. -2 times 0 is what?
0, ma'am.
0. 0 plus 3 is?
3, ma'am.
Beautiful. That's 3. Thank you, Brie, as well. I want someone different to answer the last two. So Brie and Itandile, let's give our classmates not a chance because they've had a chance, but let's let them answer. We're going to go with 2. What are we getting when we substitute 2 into this formula, you guys? I see Uma's hand. Yes, Uma.
-1.
So it's going to be -4 plus 3, which gives -1. Beautiful. And what's the last answer?
You get -6 plus 3, -3. Yeah.
-3. Beautiful. So let me write out my coordinates now. Before I actually write out my coordinates, guys, I know I'm 1 minute over. I'm going to be done in the next 2 minutes, but I want to check in with you guys. Do we all understand how I put my inputs into the table, how I got my outputs? Are we all happy with the filling in of the table? Cool, 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 cool. Let us write our coordinates. Remember, we always write our coordinates in the format x and then y. So my first one is going to be not just 6, but -6 and 15. Then it's going to be -5 and 13. And then it's going to be 0 and 3. And then it is going to be 2 and -1. And then 3 and -3. Okay, we're back on our Cartesian plane. In the middle is always 0. Y-axis, x-axis. I can see I need to fit in 15 over here. So I'm just going to number them in 2. So I'm going to go here a -2, -4, -6, -8, -10, -12, -14, and -16. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. I'm going to stop there. Here is going to be -2, -4, negative, and I actually need to fit 15 on my output. So -6, -8, -10, -12. I'm going to stop there, numbering upwards now. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and I need to fit in 15, so that's going to be 16 over there. Cool. Let's now plot our points before we leave. -6 and 15. -6 is here. 15 is all the way up here in the middle there. Okay. -5 and 13. -5 is going to be right in the middle here. And up to 13 is going to be in the middle here. 0 and 3. 0 is right in the middle here. Up to 3 on my y-axis. It's going to give me this little dot over there. positive 2 on my x-axis, and then negative 1. That I'm going to have to erase my numbering because it's going to be right under here. Okay, and then positive 3 on my x-axis and down to negative 3. Negative 3 is going to be in the middle here. So you guys will see now my dots. In case you missed it, let me just highlight it because I did do it all in black. There and there. And lastly, you go and it's drawn in highlighter, but that's fine, I guess. And you join your dots. And that is that. I see I have half of you still with me, so I'm glad you guys have stayed till the end.